I have waited tables for the last 3 years. During my shift last night, a group of 4 women in their late 20s came in. They were a pleasure to have as customers. They ordered 4 of our house cocktails to start with and then went over the menu for their entrees. Then I was on my way back to their booth with the drinks on a tray. I walked by the back side and overheard one of them talking about how she was 14 weeks along. When I rounded back, they were talking about the same topic and it was clear to me that she was pregnant. I figured her having 1 drink wasn't a big deal. They ordered their entrees and I went off to handle other tables. About 5 minutes later, they called me over again and asked for another round. At this point I started getting concerned, but I took the order and cheerfully said I'd be right back. This time, I went to the bartender and asked him to make one of them a virgin cocktail. He was confused, but since he's a good friend of mine, I told him to just trust me. A few cocktails later, hers strictly virgin, they started getting rowdy, and Mrs. Pregnant Woman was also getting into it. I figured that since she didn't notice, things were okay. The problem came when I took them their check, and they asked to split the bill at the register. When Mrs. Pregnant Woman got to the counter, I saw her cocktails were marked with virgin. My bartender had edited each in the system for inventory. It was too late for me to edit them back, so I just had her pay, hoping that she wouldn't look at the receipt. They all thanked me and left, leaving a generous tip in the process. They were talking in the parking lot for the next short while, presumably waiting for an Uber. Several minutes later Mrs. Pregnant Woman came back and asked what virgin on the receipt meant. I fessed up that it meant non-alcoholic. She blank stared me for a few seconds and then asked if she had ordered a non-alcoholic cocktail. I said no, but told her that I assumed she wanted one seeing as she was pregnant. It was a lame lie and I'll admit it, but she looked me in the eye and asked me to return her part of the tip. I did so. Then she talked to my manager. My manager took me into her office and literally shrieked at me until hoarse. I stood my ground and told her that I'm not going to be responsible for FAS. She told me that she was taking me off the calendar until she decided what to do with me. She also informed me that I could get the restaurant in serious trouble for discrimination. And upon examination of my state's laws, she is correct. But when I talked to my mother and father about it tonight, they told me that they understood my position. The entire staff at the restaurant is against me and I think that I'm going to call in and tell my manager that I quit. But I still feel in the right here. I have a sister who has a husband who is the poster child of weaponized incompetence. They have 4 kids and she's pregnant. My sister works a full-time job, 40+ hours a week, cleans her entire house, cooks, takes care of all her children without him doing anything. It is seriously mind-blowing that she wakes up at like 4 a.m., cooks breakfast, does chores, gets all of her kids ready for school, takes them all to school and daycare, and all he does is stay home and work. And when his kids get home, after my sister picks them up, of course, he will play with them for a little and play video games until he falls asleep. She actually makes more than him. My fiancé and I had to stay with them for 6 weeks while our home was being renovated, and since we both WFH, we helped her, and it is amazing how much happier she is when she has help. I helped with the kids and my fiancé even drove her to doctor's appointments. Her husband literally only acknowledges he is a parent when his family is around, then he is a God-fearing, hard-working father of 5. He is the one that wanted more kids. She wanted to stop after her last baby, but he needed more boys. I am seriously concerned not only for her, but her kids as well, because now her oldest is seeing what's happening and trying to help, but my sister is prideful and refuses to let her child do anything. Me and this man have never gotten along. He's been acting like this since their 8-year-old was born. I've tried talking to her about leaving, but she doesn't want her kids to grow up in a broken home. And unfortunately her experience with our parents' divorce was completely different than mine, so she doesn't understand that a divorce would benefit her kids here because she thinks they need their mom and dad together. Cut to this past weekend, her and her husband threw a pre-Thanksgiving potluck where our entire family plus his was there. I stayed with my sister a few days before because I knew he wouldn't help. So we're at dinner all talking, and I mention we are trying for a baby, and my brother-in-law makes an offhanded comment to him about how hard fatherhood is. And I snapped and said, like you would know. He looked taken aback and asked me what I meant, and I unloaded on him. calling him a pathetic excuse for a man who makes my 8 months pregnant sister do everything for their family. I went off for a solid 10 minutes and he sat there shrinking in his seat. I left. Last night my sister called me and thanked me for standing up for her and told me she appreciated me. Although today I got a very nasty text from him telling me I'm a terrible person and because I lied in front of his family, his mom is angry at him and is moving in with them to help her out, and I've made him the laughingstock of his family. He certainly thinks so. My fiancé, male 28 years old, and I, female 30 years old, have been together for 3 years. I used to live close to work and used public transportation, but after I moved into his house, which is hours away from work, I bought myself a car since I'm a nurse, and also since there isn't any hospitals close to where we live that I could transfer to. My fiancé's car hasn't been working for close to 2 months now. It requires so much money to get it fixed, and he refused my financial help when I offered it. Instead, he would ask to use my car every now and then, and I agreed as long as it's when I'm not working, and also since he only uses it for trips to the supermarket, etc. On New Year's Eve, he told me he wanted to use my car to go hang out with his friends and celebrate, but I declined because I had to cover a night shift and needed my car to travel to work. He insisted and even suggested I take the night off or swap shifts with another nurse, but I couldn't do that last minute. I thought he dropped it then, but when I went into the shower and got out, I couldn't find him nor my car. I freaked out and started calling for half an hour, but he didn't answer me. I tried again till one of his friends picked up. I demanded he give the phone to my fiancé, but he said they were out and confirmed that he took my car and told me that my fiancé said that it's better that I skip my shift and he'll be back with my car later. I couldn't take it. I felt so enraged. I had my fiancé on the phone telling him I did not consent for him to take my car to go hang out with friends, and said I'd call the police to get it back if he refused to come back with it. But he didn't take me seriously, so I ended up calling the police, and he and his friends were picked up at the bar where they were hanging out, then were taken to the police department. I got my car from there and still went to my shift. My fiancé was let go hours after I left, and he blew up my phone with missed calls and texts about how I was out of my mind to call the police on him and put him in this situation. I did not respond, but when I got off work the next day we got into an argument and he said he couldn't believe I'd do this to him, but I told him he made me do this, to which he responded that I was petty and callous because not only did I ruin his New Year's celebration, but all his friends aren't speaking to him after I put them in this situation as well, and he then kept giving me silence about it. I did consider this a form of theft, especially since he went behind my back after getting a no from me. But he was shocked that I'd even imply that he was a thief and said what's yours is mine and vice versa, so I shouldn't be using the terms theft and stealing. I have looked up career possibilities as a moving military girlfriend, maybe someday wife. My boyfriend really wants me to go with him, but I don't know if it's the best thing for me, career-wise. Currently, I'm in school, going for my bachelor's degree. I only have 2 years left, and after that, I plan on getting into law school. He's in the Air Force, stationed in Texas, which he's been here for about 3 years now. We have been together for 1.5. Knowing that he's going overseas, it's possible he'll be stationed in different countries for a few years. What's holding me back is my career. Law school isn't meant to be jumping around from country to country without knowing where you'll land permanently due to the bar exam. Also, we aren't married and I don't know if I should risk my career, which I've been very committed to being a lawyer, for a future that's a bit warped. I did see that I can become a programmer and it'll be versatile, but that's not what I truly want to do. Sure, Hawaii seems amazing, but more of a 3-year-long vacation with a questionable future. We both agreed that long distance wouldn't work since I would be all the way in Texas. Is it bad that I want to go but don't want to risk it all just to be put in a bad situation of misery? Also, if I do go, I'd have to transfer schools and go to school in Hawaii. That's already a very high tuition that has to be paid by FAFSA and student loans. Quite frankly, I'm also afraid that I won't be able to sustain myself separately from my boyfriend's income. I like to feel independent and know that I can fend for myself. Maybe that's a pride issue? I don't know, but I do know it's a high standard of living. That also adds to the jumble of thoughts. I will also admit, I am fairly close to my parents. In my Hispanic household, we have always been very united. I currently work with them in their small business because it benefits the both of us. I can go to school with a flexible schedule and still make good income, and they have a stable employee. That's something my boyfriend never really knew growing up. He's a Kansas boy, from a small town, with parents who split up when he was little. I feel like he doesn't understand how hard it'll hit my parents and I, being far away for 3 years. It also bothers them a bit that I'm not married but willing to leave, not knowing what'll happen in the relationship.